Even though I and countless others have covered the latest major FNAF game, Into the Pit, and how it affects the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, I realized that there's actually a ton of lore that no one's found or discussed before left to cover that might tell us extremely valuable information about the future of the franchise, the true nature of the ball pit, and more. Hidden in the files of Into the Pit are a bunch of clues, hidden characters and dialogue, weird sprites and more that are crucial to solving some of the mysteries left in this game and other mainline FNAF games. There's also some just generally fun stuff hidden in the files for us to find, so get ready theorists, because today we'll be delving into the pit and fishing out some scrapped content, hidden lore, and more. Before we start, I do want to say that I am fully aware the following Into the Pit content is scrapped and shouldn't be used as major evidence for anything because of that fact. However, I think these sprites and secrets might help us understand certain things about Into the Pit and other mainline FNAF games, as well as come up with some smaller theories or solutions anyway. I won't be covering every single piece of cut content for obvious reasons, since Into the Pit was in development for years according to Scott, and there's really a lot to unpack there, with most of said content not even being lore relevant. Huge shout out to everyone working on the Into the Pit page of the Cutting Room Floor website for some of the images, footage, and information I bring up in this video. Their hard work is a lifesaver, as this stuff is pretty obscure and hard to find. But enough yapping, let's return to the pit and start theorizing. You might be thinking that there really shouldn't be that much scrapped content Into the Pit. After all, anything that's left over is probably just some old assets and maybe the occasional unused sprite. There's actually a treasure trove of stuff to uncover in the files of Into the Pit, one of which is an entire chain of unused minigames about, funnily enough, William Afton and Vanny? These scrapped minigames are actually just earlier versions of the minigames we got in the final product and have pretty similar gameplay. The assets and the sprites are still left over, and we actually have a pretty good idea of what these forgotten games are going to be about, so let's get right into it. In the first minigame, Bring Them, you'd play as Vanny, luring kids scattered across an empty Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to William, and upon doing so he calls you a good girl and the minigame ends. This is what became the Fetch minigame. The next minigame is Clean Up the Mess, which is the original version of the Count the Ways minigame, where Vanny cleans up the scene of the crime or where William killed the MCI kids. Next up is Put Them Back Together, where Vanny rebuilds the animatronics and places dead kids inside them, leading to their possession. This is what became the To Be Beautiful minigame. And last but not least is Don't Let Them Escape, an entirely scrapped idea that had you preventing the 4 Freddy's animatronics from escaping from you, again as Vanny. Raphael wasn't present for this minigame, but I presume that she was meant to be in it. So, in case you somehow can't tell, this sequence of minigames is absolutely insane for a FNAF game like Into the Pit, which takes place in 1985, or around 50 years before Security Breach even takes place. So, what's going on here? Well, when I first heard that there was a scrapped minigame about Vanny, I thought it was because Megacat Studios and Scott didn't want to confirm that the ball pit Oswald travels through is actually time travel, and having a minigame where Vanny travels back in time 50 years would very much be confirmation of time travel, duh. But there's actually a completely different and way dumber reason. This entire sequence of minigames was created without Scott Cawthon's approval, and the whole Vanny/Vanessa being Afton's daughter thing, which is a major aspect of the minigames, was actually a huge misunderstanding ripped by Megacat from the movie. Thankfully, Scott learned from his mistakes with Security Breach and didn't let this make it into the final product. The minigames and sprites look pretty good though, and I think it could have been cool to see something like this, but instead of Michael Afton serving as William's accomplice. But that would probably affect the timeline in weird ways, so I don't know. I think the main reason this was scrapped was, apart from the obvious, not to push the idea that Vanessa from Security Breach is an Afton, as we totally could have seen a little Vanny Easter egg, but we didn't. As I said earlier, another reason, and probably the main one, this probably wasn't added, is because of it possibly confirming the ball pit being real time travel, which I'm pretty sure it isn't. The idea of this minigame being connected to Glitchtrap, which in turn would make people think Glitchtrap is Afton, is also a possible reason as to why this minigame was shelved, but who knows. Another important cut part of the minigames I want to single out is actually the comeback of an extremely mysterious character we've been theorizing about for years at this point, Old Man Consequences. There was originally going to be a 20% chance of Old Man Consequences spawning instead of William on top of the ledge in the secret room hidden in Collect the Hats. Upon encountering him, he talked to the player, offering the following lines.
You fell down the rabbit hole, didn't you? It's not your fault. You didn't know. The others didn't know either. You're a little different from them, you know. You're not trapped yet. Find solace in knowing such. Look to the sky or fall into the pit. The choice is yours.
These lines are actually extremely interesting, and while you might think they have something to do with, the story of the game they're actually from, I think Old Man Consequences dialogue can be applied to a completely different context from a completely different FNAF game, Ultimate Custom Night and the attitude of the vengeful spirit towards William. In Ultimate Custom Night, OMC implores the player to leave the demon to his demons and rest, leaving the suffering behind. It's implied the spirit refuses and continues to torment William. But these lines could tell us a bit more about the spirit and the old man, so let's analyze them a bit closer. "You fell down the rabbit hole, didn't you?" could imply that the one you should not have killed got carried away with exacting his revenge against William. Pretty obvious. "You're a little different from them, you're not trapped yet," could point to how the other souls or some form of them wanted revenge against William but ended up stuck in his hell with him, like the characters on the select screen. This is similar to one of Withered Bonnie's UCN voice lines: "What is this new prison? Is it me trapped, or is it you? Perhaps it's us both." The vengeful spirit, however, isn't trapped. He doesn't have a shell stuck in this purgatory. He's free to go whenever he pleases. This is what OMC means by saying the spirit isn't trapped yet. He can leave Ultimate Custom Night if he wants to, but he's choosing not to. And finally, look to the sky or fall into the pit. The choice is yours, is where this gets absolutely crazy. Because, believe it or not, apart from being a really cool name drop, this single line and what happens in the Collect the Hats minigame might just explain the true fate of the vengeful spirit and the hell he created for William. Think about the gameplay of the minigame. You collect the 5 hats, you go to the secret opening, and once you walk far enough, you're met with Purple Guy dangling a balloon over a pit. You can fall into the pit, but the correct way to win is to get the balloon without falling into it and leaving the room or looking to the sky. The pit represents the vengeful spirit's desire for revenge, just like the rabbit hole from earlier, and the sky represents liberation of the soul and rest for the vengeful spirit. So if our player character opts to look to the sky, what does that mean for Ultimate Custom Night? Well, it does seem to lead to the conclusion that Ultimate Custom Night is over and Afton is back, right? Well, wrong. Because if you restore the sprites and reenact the Old Man Consequences encounter in-game, you can see that the hat he's dangling above the pit crumples up and falls into it, becoming uncollectible, heavily implying that the vengeful spirit, or one of the kids Afton killed, since as I covered in my last video, the hats in this minigame probably represent William's victims, falls into the pit and continues his torture of William, or continues Ultimate Custom Night and isn't freed. We see this in the Old Man Consequences minigame from UCN itself. Our character sinks into the lake and continues the suffering, just like falling into the pit. As to why this was cut, I genuinely have no clue. You might say it's because Scott didn't want to confirm that UCN was still going on or whatever, but I think it's just a matter of this not fitting into the game. However, unlike the Vanny minigames, this thing is fully playable and doesn't break the lore we've been building up over the last few years. In fact, it feels like it would fit pretty well into the game. I guess Scott and Megacat didn't want to get the lore of Into the Pit mixed up with the lore of the Vengeful Spirit, and, you know, when the two don't really have a relation to each other. But, I don't know. Unlike the Vanny minigames though, these lines do feel like they were written by Scott, but something happened and they, along with the old man, didn't make it in for some reason. Maybe we'll find out why one day, but for now, we have no clue. An interesting cut feature I'd like to bring up is a mysterious item known as the Killer Door in the files. This door would apparently appear behind one of the broken cabinets on the far right side of the arcade room and would lead to the room where Oswald's dad is held by Pit Bonnie. If we look at the map, we can see that this room would probably be right above the storage room, meaning that the door Freddy's blocking and the one Pit Bonnie takes your dad through could lead to a hallway going around the whole pizzeria and ending up around the ball pit, hence how they got there so fast. This doesn't really mean much, but it does clear up an interesting little mystery left Into the Pit that I thought was cool to answer. Another weird funny thing worth pointing out is this weird unused version of the basement of Oswald's house, which for some reason has a bloody cleaver in it. No lore here, just confusion. But this next one is pretty cool. This is an image that very clearly shows a drawing made by an MCI victim of the incident, similar to what we saw during the FNAF movie. But take a look at how many victims there are in this image. 6. I won't get into the whole 6 victims thing since I already brought that up in my previous Into the Pit video, which you should check out after this one. But I really like how this drawing adds to the vibe of you exploring the memories of the MCI. Since the image is split into pieces, maybe the way you got the 2-star ending was originally going to be by collecting all the fragments of the drawing. And the last detail I want to bring up today is a pretty insane mystery that was originally brought up as a joke by Twitter user Zarek5 that I commented on and was later solved. FSLIANRNOD, or FSLLA. A secret message hidden in the files of Into the Pit. This became an inside joke for a couple of days until people realized that if you unscramble the letters, you get Find Larson, or the detective from the Fazbear Fights epilogues who helps the Stitch Wraith defeat Afton and Eleanor. Could this mean we could be getting a Megacat game based on the epilogues? I'm not sure, but what do you think? Tell me in the comments. With that, that's about all I have to say about the mysteries hidden in the files of Into the Pit. As I said at the beginning of the video, yes, I know these are all technically scrapped and shouldn't be used as evidence, but I still think they're worth bringing up for how cool they are or what new stuff they might bring to the table. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe since my objective is to get to 2k subscribers before the end of the year, and your help would be highly appreciated. But as always, theorists, remember, it's just a theory, keep on theorizing, and never stop overthinking. This has been Withered Circle, the Midnight Theorist.